and gentlemen, welcome on in back again, August 2nd, for some more Fantasy Daily coming at you on this Tuesday. Your host, Nathan Passwell, at it again. And of course, again, I got my man, the lead analyst here at Fantasy Daily with me again, John Landry. John Landry, say hi to the people.
Hi, people.
So, we are obviously ready to rock, ready to go, super stoked to be back here. We had the running back draft or pass episode yesterday. Super excited to do that episode. A lot of good points on there between me and John. So if you have not seen that, go ahead and check that one out as well. And if you do not follow me already, follow me on TikTok at Fantasy Daily Football. You can follow me on Twitter at npasswell. That way you can see me during the season, during game day, hear all my thoughts about me screaming at the TV. Not just screaming at the TV, I'll be screaming at Twitter too. So if you want to follow me over there for my game day thoughts, you can as well. John Landry, you are off of social media. He is just in the spreadsheets, my friends. He is just plugged into the stats. So that's how you know the analysis is good. Let us roll right into it today. We are doing wide receiver draft or pass. So if you missed yesterday's show, this was previously the undraftable show where we get a bunch of players where we don't like them. We say you don't want these people on their team. We made it a little bit more, diverse this year, where instead of just saying no to the people that we want, we get in some questionable players that have been talked about a lot in the offseason. We compare that to their draft ADP and we say, do we want to draft this guy or should we be passing on them where they are? So without further ado, let us get into it. And just like yesterday when we started out with CMC as the most controversial player probably coming into this year, we're going to do the same exact thing today, talking about probably the most controversial wide receiver in the draft as far as draft capital goes and what you want to put on your team, whether or not you feel good about it or not. And that is Michael Thomas, currently going at ADP 68, which is in the 6th round. Now, I want to preface this before I even get involved with Michael Thomas. Excuse me, sip time. Before I even get involved with Michael Thomas, you're going to hear 6th round a lot. This isn't even just the wide receiver draft or pass show. This is basically the round 6 show. Because round 6 this year, especially if you're in a 12-man draft, that's usually what we base everything off of. 6th round is like the wide receiver, kind of area this year where those are the big names that are sitting in there that could either easily turn into, wide receiver ones, or they could really hurt your feelings. So let's start off first with Michael Thomas, who is 29 years old. He's played 7 games since week 1 of 2021. He played 0 games since week 15 of 2020. He played 7 games since the start of 2020. He has played 0 games since week 15 of that same exact year. I'm going to have to pass no matter what on Michael Thomas. He's definitely one of the players where if we had just the undraftables episode this year, he would be probably the first name that we talk about where I am just not touching Michael Thomas. Jarvis Landry killing it at OTAs. They drafted Chris Olave in the 1st round, and Chris Olave. They drafted him in the 1st round. He is a crisp, talented route runner. His highlights are insane, and I think he's going to be very, very good on that team. With Jameson starting, whatever opportunity I think exists for a wide receiver on that team is going to go to Chris Olave or Jarvis Landry. I think that Michael Thomas is going to... I think the best case scenario for Michael Thomas this year is AJ Green sense. You know what I mean? Being that guy who every now and then he makes a catch and you're like, oh, remember that guy? But besides that, I really don't see Michael Thomas being any sort of fantasy value. In the 6th round, way too high of a draft capital. I am completely out on Michael Thomas. I don't even think I'd be drafting Michael Thomas if I saw him in the 9th or 10th round. I wouldn't be touching him. He's one of those players where, I'll draft him late on in the drafts and drop him week 3 and not feel bad about it. So me personally, completely out on Michael Thomas. John, what do you say about Michael Thomas?
We're talking about a wide receiver that set an NFL record of most receptions in the year. But I'm a hard pass. It took a year to get the surgery he needed, so that's irreversible damage that he has sustained. I know he kind of built his reputation on the slant route. I don't know if he's still going to be that guy. I don't know if they're going to expect him to go deep. I don't know if they're going to expect him to run across the field like he did to get 149 receptions. But I don't want to take the chance in the 6th round maybe in the 9th round because he's got kind of established a relationship with Winston. So like they got some little history, and he can't catch. So at the end of the draft, I might consider. In the 6th round, there's such great names that surround him that I would draft all of those above Michael Thomas. It's Olave. He's going to fight for the ball. I've always been a Jarvis Landry guy, but that's because, Jay Landry 14, that was my favorite forever. But I think Landry's going to turn into the one. Thomas is going to kind of fall off the radar, but still have, big splashes because he's still an elite receiver, but not as capable elite receiver. So it's a hard pass for me.
Right, and you also got to acknowledge that, those best years of Michael Thomas with 149 receptions or whatever it was, that's Drew Brees. This is not a Drew Brees team anymore, and, as much as he was slant man back then and he could catch those passes, there's no way in chance that he returns to any sort of that value, and I really don't expect anything big from him this year outside of, 1 or 2 glory touchdowns, but besides that, completely out on Michael Thomas. I think his best days are behind him, and I think, his NFL career is, it's a dwindling light, He's at the end of his road on that one, and it's unfortunate to see somebody that big go down, but he's a big guy. So we are both out on Michael Thomas like we think you should all be. This next slate, I am going to let John Landry take the reins on this one because me and him have been back and forth all season on one in particular, and that is Juju Smith-Schuster. We are going to talk about the entire array of Kansas City wide receivers, and John, I like the argument that you've constructed here, so I'm going to let you take the reins first here on the Kansas City wide receivers.
So, starting off, Juju's going at 74, so he's early, mid to late 6th round. So we also have MVS, just came over from Green Bay, signed a nice 3-year deal, so he's going to be Mahomes' guy for a long time. And then you got the guy who's been there for a while, Cole Hartman, who's probably not getting drafted in most drafts. With an elite quarterback like Mahomes, who's going to throw 600, 700 times at least. A lot of these guys seem possible to draft at their EDP. So we'll start with what I think is the bottom of the tier, and that would be MVS. I think MVS is going to be the wide receiver 3 on the team. If you look at his history, he was with Hall of Famer, or future Hall of Famer, Aaron Rodgers. So that guy is an elite quarterback. And if you look at what his target and catch rate, he's only catching about half his passes. Rodgers is throwing the ball right. MVS is not catching it. So, with a lot of targets to go around, he might get 100 targets. He's only going to catch 50 of them. So, with his draft capital, I'm going to pass on MVS. So, I think Quinn will be wide receiver 2. He's got that history with Mahomes, and let's pull up his stats wherever he may be in my screen here. $83 targets, 59 receptions. So he's catching a lot more than MVS. I expect his numbers to go over 100 with targets. With Tyree Kill, easily the biggest trade of the offseason, with him going to Miami, that's a lot of targets that get moved around. Not many of those targets are going to go to Kelsey because he's already got, the wide receiver 1 workload here, 150 targets each year. So I think Mecole Hardman at his draft capital might actually be draftable. He's probably not going to be a touchdown guy. I don't know if he's going to be, the 9 route or the out route where he's just, downfield. But he should be able to be fantasy relevant. And then the big topic here is Juju. Juju had one excellent season in 2018 when, we had Big Ben, had AB, so he was the slot guy. So he wasn't catching all the looks from the DB because Antonio Brown was there. But coming on to Kansas City, he got a 1-year contract with a base rate of $2.5 million, but like $7 million of incentives. And I think that that's enough to want to drive him to push as hard as he can to make up to that $10 million that his contract allows. I think that he's probably going to end up in the slot rather than the man on the outside. But I think he's going to be the true wide receiver one. He's going to take a bulk of those targets, I believe. And in the 6th round, I want to say pass because there's a lot of good options that surround him. But if you want to take that shot at a good reward, you might be able to draft him at the end of the 6th. He'll probably fall into the 7th because the wide receiver pool is a little murky surrounding KC, but he's going to be fantasy relevant this year, I believe.
Right. So, and I mean, it makes a big point when you talk about vacated targets for Kansas City. You know, if you're looking at somebody like Tyree Kill with the rapport that he had with, Patrick Mahomes, that's a lot of work that needs to go somewhere. And unfortunately for me, when we're talking about ADPs and we're considering where Juju is going in the 7th round or MVS in the 11th round, it's really a toss-up for me on which one of these wide receivers is the more talented wide receiver. Now, when we bring up MVS, and his, target catch percentage and whatnot, MVS was really the screw it, let's see what we can make happen with Aaron Rodgers when they had Devontae Adams there. Devontae Adams is, the guaranteed we're going to keep going to this guy. And MVS and everybody else, Allen Lazard, that was there kind of falls off the map. So I do expect to see a little bit, a more utilization for MVS on Kansas City than we saw in Green Bay. So I think you see, MVS's career get a little bit better here with Patrick Mahomes. But I do feel like it's a toss-up between Juju and MVS on who could be the one. And I think Mecole Hardman is still going to be, getting his work. He has more of a rapport than anybody on the team, and his draft capital in the 15th is not close to me when it comes to who would be the best, draft value as far as who's Patrick Mahomes going to throw the ball to. Now, with all of this considered, my big gripe with any of the Kansas City wide receivers is that outside of Tyree Kill and Kelce historically, you really didn't want to touch anybody. And with Hill's vacated targets, I think that Kelce is going to be utilized a lot more. I think you're going to see Mecole Hardman get involved a lot more. And I really just think that it's going to create this wasteland between Juju, MVS, and Mecole Hardman where every single week you're praying that you have the one that has them there. And it's really going to be you just chasing the tail on who's it going to be. And, like you said before, who's going to be the one to get caught holding the bag. And I really don't want any part in this. Me personally, if I'm taking a wide receiver late and I'm taking a flyer, it's going to be Mecole Hardman. Between Juju and MVS, I think it's a toss-up. So for ADP's concern, I'm going to go with MVS. And with who's going around Juju, let me take a look real quick here. Darnell Mooney, he might be gone beforehand, but if he was on the board, it would be easy. I'd take Darnell Mooney. I would much rather have Gabriel Davis than Juju Smith. It's tough for me to look. Even Rashad Bateman and Juju are kind of on the same level and the same tier. They might be even close in my rankings. It's just really difficult for me to trust anybody in that wide receiver aspect because of the history that we've seen that, Patrick Mahomes really doesn't have a favorite target that he continuously goes to outside of Hill and Kelce, and even when one of those was taken away for the game, or if they were out for a game, there was really no for sure bet. And I think it's just going to be much of the same with that this year, is that you're really not going to have anybody that you have confidence with. And with Juju going in that area that he's going into, there's a lot more players that I would be looking at than Juju, especially in that round, around round 6, around 7.
So with Mahomes with Mahomes, they're going to be looking at, say, 650, 700 attempts. We'll give 150 to Kelce. We'll give 100 to the backfield. That's 250. We're left with 350 to 400 targets to spread between a couple wide receiver 4 or 5s. Nobody's ever going to look at them. And then your other 3. So they're all going to get work. But it's just anybody's guess who's going to.
And I think that's the problem for me, is that it really is anybody's guess. We could wake up in November and Josh Gordon has 100 targets or 60 targets. You know what I mean? So it's like, for me personally, with just the expansive backfield that they've created, I mean the expansive wide receiver room that they created, it's definitely worrying. Definitely worrying for me going into this season on what you can be confident over there. All right, moving on to a name that I feel has gotten a little bit more shade than he should this season, and that is Adam Thielen, going at pick 71 in the 6th round. Like we said, it's the 6th round show. That's what we're going to be talking about most here. We're going to be talking about Adam Thielen right now. I think Adam Thielen is a long way away from that injury, and he can return to that form. I really believe that Adam Thielen can return to that form. He's obviously behind Justin Jefferson, so he's not going to be, the absolutely dominant wide receiver that he was that year, that he was putting up 100 yards in every single game. But I do think that the talent is there, and I think that, for Adam Thielen, if he's in for a full slate of 17 games, we both agree here, I don't think he has less than 120 targets. So when it comes to the 6th round, you really can't ask for more out of a 6th round wide receiver than 120 targets. That's an amazing amount of targets that you can basically be guaranteed he is going to get. This team is going to be much of the same. So I think with Adam Thielen, the real concern this year with him is his injury concerns and what's going on with that, and if he's going to be ready to go. I think he is ready to go because he's not playing at a Justin Jefferson level. He doesn't need to come back and be the wide receiver 1. He needs to come back and be the wide receiver 2. I do believe he can do that, and I really, really like Adam Thielen, especially where he's going. And doing mock drafts, I'm finding Adam Thielen on a lot of my teams. When he falls to the 7th round, he's basically on all my teams in the 7th round, whether or not I need a running back or not. I'm not passing up on the consistency that Adam Thielen can give you. And if you have an injury go down, in your top 3 or top 4, whatever you have in your wide receivers, whatever you have in your draft format, top 2 wide receivers, top 3, if you can flex, Adam Thielen in there for an injury week, you're going to be stoked about it because that's super consistency and somebody who I think you can rely on it week in and week out for a great baseline.
So I love Adam Thielen this year, especially in the 6th. I mean, he's easily draftable earlier. If he's there in the 6th, I would never pass him up. They say he played 13 games last year. I would really chalk it up to more like 11. I see one game he had 8% snap count. One game he had 37% snap count. He didn't play those games. So in the 11 games he played, and I'll include the 13 because, stats, 95 targets within the 13 games. He's a workhorse. He's going to get targeted because they're going to be covering Jefferson. And from what I see in the 11 or 13 games he played, 10 touchdowns. That is huge. If he got that many targets and that many touchdowns in that game, in those many games, he's easily draftable in the say 4th round, at least to me. I'm willing to take the chance of Thielen in every draft. I would not be upset if he was my 2nd wide receiver drafted because I wanted to build my running back core and draft up for him to guarantee numbers. I know there's a little bit of concern with the injury. I'm not concerned about it. He had the surgery for it. He didn't wait a year like Michael Thomas did. So I will draft Thielen in the 6th, 5th, and 4th round.
Yeah, love Thielen this year. Definitely love that he's being underdrafted like that because he can basically fall into your lap for almost nothing. And like you said, if you have 2 strong running backs and you end up with Adam Thielen as your wide receiver 2, I don't hate that at all. I think that's great consistency there, and you're going to have smash running back plays every single week with great consistency at wide receiver, which always proves to be a amazing strategy. When people have those top tier running backs and they can mix them with those just consistent wide receivers, the upside is always there for them to haul in a touchdown and just immediately blow out your week. So love him, love the upside of Adam Thielen, and he could be one of those players who just sneaks in 2 touchdowns on any given week.
So even with only playing 13 games, still wide receiver 28, and 2 of those games he barely played. So I want it.
Yeah, 11 games, 20, basically 11 games, wide receiver 28.
Basically 11 games.
Yeah. All right, so moving on to the Chicago running wide receiver Darnell Mooney, currently going in the 6th round. And I'm going to be completely honest, the only reason Darnell Mooney is a part of this show is because he is going way too low, and I am all in on Darnell Mooney. He could be a dominant wide receiver 3 in 3 wide receiver leagues, to the point where if you got a running back and you're going 3 running backs, or whatever it is, you get to the 6th round and you're looking for that 3rd wide receiver in wide receiver 3 leagues, and you get Darnell Mooney. I think Darnell Mooney is an absolute smash play. He's going to be one of those players who's absolutely consistent. The big gripe here is Justin Fields. He's unproven. We don't know what's going to happen with that yet. We're not 100% sure. But I think that Darnell Mooney is going to be one of those players that remains under the radar throughout the draft season. Then when we finally get to draft season, he rises just a little bit. But by the time we get to midpoint in the season, I think Darnell Mooney is going to be that name that we didn't pay attention to last year like Elijah Moore, but he just continuously gets it done. I think the talent there, especially for Darnell Mooney, when you watch his game footage, it didn't really go his way. He didn't get the ball when he needed it, but he is cooking defensive backs. And Darnell Mooney is one of those players, kind of like Terry McLaurin, I think, where he was under the radar for a long time, and because of the team that he was on, we weren't talking about him, but he is an absolutely incredible wide receiver talent in the NFL, and I think we're going to be talking about Darnell Mooney for years to come. But I love the talent of Darnell Mooney. It's just about aligning with the quarterback, which makes the 6th round draft price that much better. I love it. I am all in for that draft capital, and if you can get him in the 7th round, later on, absolutely stoked for him. But for where he is going, I am all about Darnell Mooney.
So when you're taking the turn at the 7th, because it seems like Mooney's being drafted right at the end of the 6th, beginning of the 7th. I can't deny wanting to take him there. It's hard to deny, he has talent, but to me, I want to pass on Mooney. I'd rather maybe take a shot at my 3rd RB there, draft up a little bit, maybe take Hunter or somebody down there, but I want to pass on Mooney only because of Justin Fields. Let's see, Justin Fields played, I think, 12 games or 13 games, only had 270 attempts. Round that up, that's 382 attempts. I don't want a QB who's not going to pass a whole lot. They got a new receivers there. I think Pringle came over from KC. So those were, not many targets missing on a KC. And then they just drafted for N'Keal Harry. So I think they'll have a little bit more work to do. And then I know that Chicago got rid of Allen Robinson. So Moody's now the, de facto number 1. So he might repeat what he did last year. But I still don't want to take the shot with Fields. I'll take Montgomery. I'll take that piece of Chicago, but I will pass on Mooney at the 7th round. It's a great value for a 7th round. I expect people to know enough to draft him sooner than that, but I don't want to take the shot on Mooney this year.
I think that's the question really when it comes to Darnell Mooney that everybody asks is how much confidence do we have in Justin Fields? And just to bring up real quick, John, you said, David Montgomery. Typically when you have a quarterback that you're not so sure about, you go ahead and grab the running back that's behind him, and especially with the talent that is David Montgomery, you go ahead and grab him. In case anybody was wondering why David Montgomery was not on our draft or pass episode yesterday, that's because you draft David Montgomery. That's why he's not on the show. So moving on from that, so it really is how you feel, where your heat gauge is. I think that, like I said, he's going to be one of those players that, kind of just offers the consistency like Elijah Moore. John not willing to dive into that kind of risk-reward section there because there's a lot more wide receivers that you can grab there that you're going to have confidence in. Moving on to Brandon Cooks, Houston Texans wide receiver. He is 28 years old. I thought Brandon Cooks was way older than that. So Brandon Cooks at... Yeah, Brandon Cooks is younger than me. I did not know that. So Brandon Cooks, 28 years old. He is currently going at 63, which is right around the 6th round. Same thing. He's, in that crowded 6th round category, but it's Mr. Reliable. if you go back and look at his stats from last year, the consistency is there, and he's just always getting it done as Mr. Reliable. He never has amazing, beautiful games. He doesn't do anything, crazy special, but he's always consistent where you can plug him into the lineup. He's going to play, he's going to have good games, and he has a chance at touchdowns. On top of that, I think Davis Mills is a startable quarterback in the NFL. So I really do believe that Davis Mills is another one of those quarterbacks where we might be talking about next year as fantasy relevant, because he had some pretty good games. He didn't have the consistency. We didn't get to see it too much, but he had some good games where, he had flashes of this could really be something here with Davis Mills. He clearly has a connection with Brandon Cooks, so I love Brandon Cooks. He's one of those, when talking about all these wide receivers here, Brandon Cooks is high up in that list of wide receivers that I would have and I would like to have on my team in that 6th round. So high on Brandon Cooks this year, super consistent last year, and I think he keeps it rolling this year, or maybe even steps it up more with him and Davis Mills. So Brandon Cooks, I'd love to keep it rolling with Brandon Cooks.
So when I think Brandon Cooks, my brain always thinks or connects it to injury. I feel like every time I was hearing about Brandon Cooks, historically, it was always, concussion, sprained or whatever. I was always thinking Brandon Cooks an injury. But I look at his game log, and he's 16 games, 15 games, 14, 16, 16. Like, he's always playing. And then I look at his numbers. 20, 16, 62 in an off year. He was probably injured. That's probably the year he was injured a ton. But 13, 15, 9. He provides. He's a great fantasy value. And going early in the 6th round, going a little bit earlier than Mooney and Thielen, he's just as draftable as these guys. Now, granted, his quarterback doesn't have the same kind of, hype that Fields has. But I'm looking at Dave Mills' stats, 13 games, almost 400 attempts. That means he's going to pass more than Fields, and I like that chance. His wide receiver core doesn't leave. Philip Dorsett is an established name, but outside of that, you got Brandon Cooks, the far ahead number 1 that I would be willing to take a shot on. If I need a wide receiver, I don't know who I'd take, Thielen or Cooks, because it can easily be the wide receiver 1 on any given week. So definitely willing to draft Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, and I think to your point, really the only thing that Houston really did this year was grab those low-hanging fruit. I think they drafted John Mechie, the wide receiver, and then they grabbed some more other running backs. But Houston likes to do this thing where they grab a bunch of random assorted pieces, and then none of them do anything. So it's really just like you said, it's going to come down to there's Brandon Cooks and really nobody else, and he just keeps getting it done. So I think that rapport week over week will increase with Davis Mills, and he's going to be a smash play. Like you said, Adam Thielen, Brandon Cooks, that's a flip of the coin to me. You know what I mean? Like it would actually be difficult for me to decide and feel like I picked the correct one in that area between Brandon Cooks and Adam Thielen. I'd probably lean Cooks because he is the bona fide one, but on the same hand, Minnesota's better offense. So it's difficult on either token, but I think you can feel good about leaving the 6th round with either one of those players. So moving on to a little bit more controversial of a player this year on where we're feeling a lot of different heat checks on where we're feeling with this player. And that, of course, is the big acquisition of the offseason, Tyree Kill going to the Miami Dolphins. And he is falling in drafts. He is currently at the ADP 18, which is the back end of the 2nd round. So, John, Tyree Kill, a bona fide wide receiver 1, finished at wide receiver 6 last year. How are you feeling about Tyree Kill now that he has joined the Miami crew there with Tua Tagovailoa?
Right off the rip, on Hill, and that's only because of Tua. Tua does not seem like the kind of passer that I want to rely on. Now, granted, Hill's going to get his. Arguably the fastest player in the league. Jalen Waddle had a pretty great season, but Tua does not put up all-star numbers, like Hall of Fame numbers. He has lots of attempts, lots of completions. hardly ever breaks 300 yards. I got one game last year where he went over 300. 400 attempts, 13 games. That's good. I like that. But he seems like he passes when he's being collapsed upon. Now, will Hill probably finish around his ADP? Absolutely possible. But I would definitely take chances on the running backs around that area because it's, a lot of stable running backs. And there's also wide receivers that I'd be willing to take a shot on that are further down the list. Keenan Allen, definitely take a shot on. Mike Evans. A.J. Brown, we'll talk about that. And then even a little further down, I like Sutton this year because Wilson's now in. So I don't want to take the shot on Tyree Kill if it's, coming back the second round and I took a wide receiver already. Definitely not going to draft Hill. If I took a running back, I think I'll take another running back and catch the wide receiver coming back around.
Right, and I'm kind of in agreement. I feel like Tyree Kill is kind of in that same scenario right now as DeAndre Swift, as I don't think there's a reality, or I don't think that there's really a chance when it comes down to team structure on how he fits onto my team when it comes to who I'm drafting there. John said Mike Evans, Keenan Allen. Both those players I want on my team before Tyree Kill. Now, don't get me wrong, like you said, I do believe that Tyree Kill will get his volume. He will have his absolute smash games, but unfortunately for me, I think the stigma of Tua will be warped in his favor by the end of the season, and I do think that we're going to be a little bit higher on Tua. They add Tyree Kill to that team, and when you do add somebody like Tyree Kill, it does a lot more for the offense than I think we're giving them credit for. You're going to open up the defense a lot more. They're going to be scared of Hill. You're going to be able to use Jalen Waddle a little bit better. I think out of everybody, the one who benefits the most from this is Mike Kaseki, and we're going to talk about him a lot more on the tight end show. But I really do believe that Mike Kaseki is the benefactor of the Tyree Kill trade. Like you said, I don't think that Tua is going to be that guy. When it comes to us talking about the Kyler Murray, the Josh Allen, kind of that area of quarterbacks when we were drafting, it was kind of the golden era of drafting, the new era of quarterbacks. Tua's really going to kind of fall down that list, and we're really not going to be talking about him. So while I do think that he's going to have a better reputation as a quarterback at the end of this year than he will right now, I don't think that he has what it takes to bring Tyree Kill to that level and keep Tyree Kill at that level. So I will have to err on the side of caution here and say that it's difficult for me to find Tyree Kill on my team. If Mike Evans and Tyree Kill are there, it's Mike Evans 100 times out of 100. There's no way in heck that I can, bring myself to draft Tyree Kill over Tom Brady and Mike Evans. You know what I mean? So I think me and John are both in the same corner here, where it just really depends on where Tyree Kill falls. I'd like Tyree Kill on my team. I wouldn't mind him. I do think that he's going to be a wide receiver too, but I do think that he's going to have a lot of drop-off games that really hurt your feelings and, is going to make it hard for you to bounce back when you're in that third-round area, third-round area. So me personally, I am probably out, or I'm going to get bullied out of Tyree Kill. I'd like to have him on my team, but for the draft capital, where he's going in drafts, it's going to be difficult for him to end up on my team. Alrighty, moving on. John, do you want to say anything more about Tyree Kill?
I'll bring up Tyree Kill a tiny bit with our next guy.
Okay, alright, so I'll let you take the lead on that one, but we are talking about newly acquired Eagles wide receiver traded for on draft night. That is A.J. Brown coming over from the Titans. He is now a Philadelphia Eagle coming to hang out with Jalen Hurts, and I would name the other wide receivers, but they're really unmentionable this year. Unmentionable. So, John, I'll let you take the lead here on A.J. Brown and what you think about him.
So, funny thing about Tyree Kill and A.J. Brown is I have them both on my Dynasty team. And it really hurts because now I want them off my Dynasty team. Because Jalen Hurts is a far better quarterback in my eyes than Tua. I know Tua was supposed to be like the number one pick or whatever, but I don't see that from him. I know Jalen's more of an on-the-ground, get-it-done guy, but I think overall Jalen is a better quarterback. So with AJ Brown, he's going, what's his ADP? 27, a little bit into the third round. I want to pass on AJ Brown. Eagles only one first team, including using the quarterback. And the wide receivers going around AJ, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen. I'm willing to take the shots on those two guys over AJ Brown. It hurts me to say that. I like AJ. He didn't have the best numbers with Tannehill, but I don't think it's going to be that much different with Jalen and Devontae Smith already there.
Right, I agree. I think that being with Jalen Hurts is an accelerated talent compared to Ryan Tannehill. I do like Jalen Hurts more than Ryan Tannehill when it comes to A.J. Brown's potential. It's just difficult for me in what I've seen in Jalen Hurts' passing that he really makes his fantasy claim. You know, I love him as a wide receiver, a quarterback one this year in fantasy football, but he really does it on the ground with his legs. He does it with the rushing touchdowns. He's not a crazy passer to me, and I do think that A.J. Brown is going to get his this year. But when you're staring at a Keenan Allen or a Mike Evans or maybe even a Deontay Johnson, it's difficult for me to want A.J. Brown. I would say that I'll take, A.J. Brown over Terry McLaurin and T. Higgins, who are currently going in that space. But if you need running back and you're looking at A.J. Brown or Ezekiel Elliott, I think it's, kind of irresponsible for you to take somebody like A.J. Brown over Ezekiel Elliott. And I know that's kind of a stretch to say irresponsible when it comes to A.J. Brown, but Zeke's reliability and what he should give you and what will probably give you compared to what A.J. Brown could fall off of, that's difficult for me because I think the likelihood of A.J. Brown falling off of a cliff and, becoming not what he was and not getting the work he was is far more likely than the people around him, their scenario of falling off of a cliff. So I do think that A.J. Brown, when you have him, he's a smash play. You play him, you have confidence in playing him, but currently where he is going, I'm very, very nervous, and I would rather lean some of the other talent that we're going to talk about over the next month rather than get somebody like, A.J. Brown and then take the chance on him actually, falling off of a wide receiver cliff because of the team structure that they have there. And I do love Jalen Hurts. It's just really difficult for me to trust what's going to happen there with Jalen Hurts and the wide receiver core. So me and John kind of both in the same boat on that one. It's difficult. It's really difficult, and as much as we love the talent, we want to make sure that we're erring on the side of caution, getting all those fantasy points we can to end up on a fantasy championship, and ultimately take the trophy home. But me personally, yeah, A.J. Brown just too rich for my blood this year. It really has to be a, perfect scenario for him to end up on my team. All right, moving on to the last name of the day in the wide receiver section of Draft or Pass, and this is one that we saved till last because I believe he is going around the 10th round. I don't have the 8AP with me right now, but I believe he is around the 10th or 11th round, and that is new, perceived wide receiver 1, maybe wide receiver 2 for the Tennessee Titans. That is Robert Woods, traded from the Rams over to the Titans. You got the addition of Treylon Burks coming in this year. You got A.J. Brown going out. So basically the default reasoning is that it's either going to be Treylon Burks or Robert Woods. But without A.J. Brown last year, in those few games, we were all chasing what wide receiver it's going to be. So I do believe that Ryan Tannehill is going to find a A.J. Brown replacement and kind of do the same thing where he is just honing in on maybe one or two guys, and it's by game who it's going to be. So me personally, I love the talent of Robert Woods. I like what he can be, what he could be, what I want him to be, and I do have some scale of trust on Ryan Tannehill to be that guy. But outside of a flex play or a bench starter, I really am not looking at Robert Woods at all. I believe that the Tennessee Titans passing game this year is going to be extremely, extremely murky. I think they're going to lean heavily on Derrick Henry. And I think that at the end of the year, we're talking about, I think maybe even before the end of the year, we're talking about Malik Willis taking over for Ryan Tannehill. So I think it's the final season for Ryan Tannehill. I'm very worried about Tennessee's passing game. I think that they're going to have a quarterback carousel, probably by midseason. So it's murky for me. Robert Woods, really just that kind of bench guy or maybe flex play. Treylon Burks, if you can get him deep in leagues, then I'll take a flyer on him. But me personally, I'm pretty much out on the Tennessee wide receiver core this year.
I want to draft Robert Woods. And here's why. When Robert Woods got injured, he didn't. I don't think he went off the field. I think he played a little more and then had to come off the field. Robert Woods is a tough dude. He's obviously the established, excellent receiver on the Tennessee by a long shot. To think that the rookie's going to come in and excel, it's possible, but not with Tennessee's passing game. Yeah, Henry's going to get 50% of the entire Tennessee offense. And I'm thinking that maybe they might cut back a little bit on Henry because he finally got his injury. They finally broke some of the brick wall. I know he came back at the end of the season, did fine. Came back in the playoffs, did fine. But where he's being drafted, which is ADP 103, so close to the ninth round or so, I think I'm willing to take a shot on him. He's surrounded by a few names that I would draft over him. Chase Claypool, I would definitely take him over Robert Woods. Christian Kirk, who's somehow the highest paid receiver in the league, not willing to take a shot on him. And then some other names, Sky Moore, Christian Watson, Alan Lazard, which, that's two Green Bay passers. Who knows who's going to be the one there. And Chris Olave, who could be fantasy relevant this year. But I like Drew, I like Stable, I like what I'm familiar with. And I like Robert Woods, who I also had on my Dynasty team and hurt to cut because he got injured. But where he's going at ADP, I will draft Robert. He won't be going right into the starting lineup. He's probably not going to be ready game one. But I'm willing to hold him when he comes back.
Right, and I think to your point about, who's going around him, I think Robert Woods really has, kind of the only appeal out of everybody around there that could be a wide receiver one outside of Alan Lazard. Obviously, Alan Lazard should be talked about as could be a wide receiver one for, Aaron Rodgers. So then you're just leaning which offense you want. Obviously, Chris Olave could be the wide receiver one, but I think it's a no-brainer on would you rather have, a Jameis Winston wide receiver one or a Ryan Tannehill wide receiver one. I would definitely pick the Ryan Tannehill outside of that. So I love Robert Woods too. I think he's a great talent. So, to your point, you really, when you get into that area, who else is going to be a wide receiver one? Who else has the chance to be a wide receiver one when you're getting into the 9th round, maybe falling into the 10th round? So definitely agree with you there as far as, the chances of them being, what they, could be and what they should be. It's just a matter of what Ryan Tannehill can do and if they keep running Derrick Henry into the ground like they are. So there we are. John Landry, another successful show, my friend. Thank you so much again for joining me. Thank you so much for taking your time to put all this analysis together, all the expert analysis coming from my friend John Landry here. And ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you so much for joining us here on another episode of Fantasy Daily. We got Draft or Pass tight ends coming up, followed by Draft or Pass quarterbacks. And then on Friday, we'll do a little bit of something special, maybe a surprise episode. We'll tell you about that when it gets there. We're not going to put that on the schedule. Thank you all so much for joining us. Follow me on TikTok at Fantasy Daily Football. Subscribe if you haven't already. Tell your friends. Get plenty of sleep. Drink plenty of water. Thank you all so much. Take care and have a good night.